Ladies and gentlemen, this is making international headlines. You know that the American delegation that was expected in Paris on April 17, 2025, has obviously arrived. The objective was to exchange and negotiate. Yes, Paris is now involved in the negotiations concerning Ukraine. The objective was to negotiate, to find a consensus, to reach an agreement on the direction to take in order to obtain as quickly as possible a ceasefire that will lead to a lasting peace, to an agreement that would give rise to a lasting peace between Europe, between Ukraine and Russia. So, they have arrived. The American delegation has arrived. The Kremlin also sent its delegation, including the government spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, I was going to say. And I don't need to explain to you how France fought to be part of the team. And since the United States saw that it was necessary to involve other European actors, especially those who are bold and are fighting tooth and nail for the continuation of the conflict in Ukraine. One can say that the meetings in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, and elsewhere ended in failure. Certainly one can say that. But what did this famous mini-summit in Paris on April 17th, 2025 yield? The result is very disappointing for Ukraine and for Ukraine's supporters who have inclinations towards hostility, who have inclinations towards the continuation of the conflict, who want the conflict to continue. In simple terms, the news is very, very bad. So, what would the Americans have proposed to their American and Russian partners? In the context of this video conference, that is what we are going to talk about. But before continuing, I humbly ask you to share the video conference, share it in all possible groups. Especially give it a lot of likes. And don't forget, always remember to activate the notification bell. Let's dive into the depths. I told you that the news is very bad. So, during the talks in Paris about the Ukrainian crisis, the United States reportedly proposed a conflict resolution plan that does not benefit Ukraine, but which Ukraine is obliged to accept. And the information is provided by the media outlet Bloomberg. So, Bloomberg tells us that the draft agreement included freezing the conflict, thus ending the conflict. Then the recognition of the territories liberated by Russia as Russian, and the relaxation of anti-Russian sanctions. And above all, the renunciation of Ukraine's NATO membership. These are the main parts of the agreement that is said to have been proposed by the Americans. When you look at the framework of this agreement, it is an agreement that starts in perfect harmony, in concordance, in collusion. And so, with the legitimate aspirations, the legitimate demands, and the indispensable conditions set by Russia, and the indispensable conditions set by Russia. These are the conditions of Russia found in this agreement. America was playing a game. America was playing a game. Or perhaps America has truly fallen under Russia's charm. It must be said that the United States presented to the European countries, the United States, their plan for resolving the conflict in Ukraine. During talks in Paris on April 17, 2025, here's what Bloomberg reports in Ukraine. The sources consulted by Bloomberg. The plan would include a freezing of the conflict as mentioned. Manage the conflict, thus temporarily suspending the conflict. The idea that since it's necessary to already go to extinguish the fire before obtaining a definitive peace agreement, American officials are said to have planned the establishment of a ceasefire within a few weeks. So in a few weeks, there will be the real ceasefire, because the other was violated since it was verbal. So furthermore, according to this news agency, Bloomberg, the plan presented during the negotiations in Paris also involved Russia retaining the new territories that had joined Russia through the 2022 referendum. Well, for the moment, we don't know. Do the territories that were recently conquered form part of it? Since the 2022 referendum, I will need to do some research to know concretely what the content is. Did the referendum state that the law of the referendum applies to the future? Or what is it about? In any case, Russia is not going to adopt a referendum text that is unfavorable to it at a time when Russia has launched the special military operation in Ukraine. And knowing that the objective of the special military operation in Ukraine is to reclaim more territories. So everything suggests that the recently conquered territories are part of, well, first of all, the news is bad since Zelensky did not want to hear that. Now that it is the Americans who are proposing, because it is a demand from Russia, because even Donald Trump told Zelensky to avoid entering into conflict with someone who is 20 times stronger and more powerful than you. Ukraine will simply be forced to comply. So, what is being said? Moreover, the American proposals for resolving the crisis in Ukraine include the easing, yes, the easing of sanctions against Russia. So, they have imposed many sanctions against Russia. But Russia had said, no, I cannot sign an agreement, not even a ceasefire. While I sign the ceasefire agreement, I will allow Ukraine to transport its grain through the Black Sea via Odessa. And what do I gain in return? So Putin had said that some sanctions would need to be lifted, even if not all, but certain sanctions, especially commercial ones, on Russia. And this is what America has accepted and is proposing to its European partners. But as if all this were not enough, there is a demand for the refusal to engage in Ukraine's accession to NATO. We already know Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, had said that now is not the time to consider Ukraine's integration into NATO. Even Donald Trump has said that it is not on the agenda. So, Ukraine's greatest desire, Zelensky's greatest ambition, is how to get his country to join NATO. And here is the blockade. It is there. And so, here's what needs to be said. Overall, Dmitry Peskov, who is the Kremlin spokesperson, commenting on the negotiations in the French capital, stated that Russia expected the Europeans and Ukrainians to move towards seeking peaceful solutions. So I made a mistake at the beginning of the video conference. He was not on site. There you go. He simply gave his opinion. The Kremlin's spokesperson. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the headline news. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I will get back to you shortly with new updates. This was the voice of Robert Théa.